recorded.
A very warm good morning to one and all. I'm Ruchit Mathur, a student of BBA Finance and Accountancy from the Department of Professional Studies, Christ University. In conversation today for Cognito Talks, we have with us the co-founder of Manjushri Technopact and the managing partner of Reset, Mr. Surendra Kedia. His extraordinary initiatives in the packaging industry and his dedicated efforts towards providing the best quality of products for more than 3 decades have resulted in Manjushri Technopack being the pioneer of the packaging industry. The interviewers for today are Aryan Mittal and Tanmay Shelot. Aryan and Tanmay are currently pursuing BBA Finance and Accountancy from the Department of Professional Studies, Christ University. A very warm welcome to you, sir, and thank you for joining us today here at Cognito Talks. We look forward to having a wonderful session with you.
Thank you for that introduction, Ruchit. So, beginning with the questions, so please tell us something about your educational and professional prior to the initiation of the company and the contribution of the experiences which you garnered there that has led to Manjushri Technopack being the success it is today.
Thank you, Tanmay. I spent my early years, in fact, my childhood was spent in Assam. We used to stay in a place called Tinsukia. It is in the almost tip of the northeastern part of India. Did my high schooling from there, and after that I did my 10+2. That time it was +2 curriculum was just introduced, and I moved to Cotton College, Guwahati. Cotton College is one of the most premier institute of Northeast India, so I did my +2 there, and I was 7th in the university while I did my 12th. So that was a big achievement. After that, the question in everybody's mind comes, what should we do after that? So my mind was always clear that I should be going for engineering. That time there were only 3 streams where you can think of if you are going into professional. Either you are an engineer, you are a doctor, or you are a chartered accountant. Nothing more than that. And of course, advocates and lawyers, they were there, but not as fancy as these 3. I got admission into Cotton College. After Cotton College, I got into the BITS Pilani. Because I was a rank holder, it was not a difficult part for me to get into BITS Pilani. And it was 4.5 years course. And I must say that was the golden time of my education period. And I did my chemical engineering. And BITS Pilani is today also, I think, one of the unique institutes. The kind of atmosphere, the kind of faculty, overall curriculum, everything was great. I passed out in 1983 from there. And after that, the professional journey began. I am from a business family, so there was always, in my mind, should I go immediately to my family business or should I go for some job somewhere and get some experience? So this was the dilemma. I was thinking I must go for some job somewhere for 3 to 4 years. But then my brother just thought of starting some new venture. We were into umbrella business. And brother thought that we should come out of umbrella and start something new. And packaging was something which we thought is the future. He started the organization Manjushri Plastics in 1983, October. I passed out 2 months later in December. So brother told, you must join me. Forget anything else. I need you, and then let us grow this business together. That is how the business of Manjushri Plastics started in 1983. We did a small investment of 25 lakhs at that time, got some loan from the bank, initial seed capital from few of our relatives, and started our professional journey. 83 was a period when the industry, in fact, 80s Indian industries were in very, very nascent stage. It was more of a license Raj, and no competition that time in any of the field you go. There were very limited players. And infrastructure also was very, very poor. Can you imagine that we didn't have a telephone line near our factory? So the nearest telephone line was 3 kilometers away. We had to draw wires from there to our plant, and all the poles were erected by our team along with the telephone department. That was the kind of infrastructure in 83. So somehow we got into the field of packaging, and we thought that the future is going to be packaging, because everything, whatever you sell, will need a packaging. And there is no going back in this field, because Indian consumer market has to grow. Along with that, packaging has to grow. Fortunately, from our second year onwards, we were able to get hold of the market in Northeast. Tea industry was that time only into the bulk packaging, and they did not have any kind of small packaging available. They started their small packaging into pouches, and we found that is the medium which we should be doing actually. So we got into the packaging of small pouches of tea. And Assam being the hub of the tea industry, we got into that business, and because of that, we were able to almost utilize our 100% capacity in the third year. In the fourth year, we became almost the largest in the Northeast, and we were able to cater to almost need of every industry which was there in all the 7 states. The packaging of consumer industry, packaging of tea industry, there were some paper industries, biscuit industries. So we were able to cater to all their needs. And we kept on expanding. Every second year there was some expansion. Our turnover in the first year was 25 lakhs. And every year we had a growth of 20 to 25%. Then the era of 90s came. There was liberalization. There was more awareness about that industries are more important for the growth of the country. We thought that we should be going out of Assam, where because in Assam what happens, it is in one corner of India, and sending material from there to all over India was not possible. So why not we go somewhere outside where we can expand in much better way? So we thought of various places, and finally found that Bangalore is the most suitable place, which is going to be the future of Indian industries. And because of the climate, because of the attitude of the government, which was ever welcoming all the industries, we choose Bangalore as our next destination. So 95 we put up a plant in Bangalore, and we started manufacturing the PET bottles. So that is a brief I can say about our journey from Assam to Bangalore. It's a long story. I can keep on going, telling about how we came from 95 till 2020. So that I can discuss as the interview goes on in the next half an hour.
Right, sir. Right, sir. That was really wonderful. That was really exciting and insightful. Starting from your alma mater, which was Pilani, where I think the whole set of engineers aspire to go. You went there. You did your hard work. Then as you mentioned, sir, you first started your umbrella company back in Assam and then shifted to Bangalore to continue your PET manufacturing and a lot of business things in between that as well. When you mentioned about the hardships you faced, it really teaches us a lesson that nothing comes easy, be it the education, be it the business venture you're venturing into. Everything involves a lot of hard work, and once that hard work is into place, some amount of luck obviously helps you. And so all this speaks volumes of the man you are today, sir. We really respect the Manjushri Tech Pack organization.
Right. Thank you, Tanmay. So as you said about 1995, we also know that the company launched its IPO that year, and the company also voluntarily delisted its stock in 2015 after a rather successful 20-year reign on the stock markets. Speaking from a financial perspective, what inspired you to launch the IPO in 1995 when the company was relatively new in the Indian scenario, and were there any hardships in doing so? Also, what motivated the company promoters to undertake the delisting decision in 2015?
So as I told you that we thought of moving to Bangalore, and we found out that in Bangalore what business to be doing. So that time the mineral water business was just starting. People were just getting the feel of packaged water, and there was hardly any big player in Bangalore who was making the bottles. There was Pearl Polymer, of course, but there was a gap. So we thought of that this is the right industry which we'll be putting our foot into. So the project size was 5 crores. So that we thought of getting into the IPO. And if you people know about Harshad Mehta, that was the time of Harshad Mehta. We started our thought process in 94, and Harshad Mehta was at the peak. So anyone who comes into the market for IPOs was getting a big success. We thought that why not we also jump into the wagon and get our finance through the public IPO. But what happened? We got our SEBI license for the IPO sometime in June, July 95, and then the date given to us was September. And during that period, the bubble of Harshad Mehta was burst. Are you people aware of the Harshad Mehta bubble?
Yes, sir, most certainly.
Yeah. So just before 1 month before the IPO, the bubble burst. So what to do? All the IPOs were failing that time because people understood that it is not safe to put your money there. And our IPO came in September 1995. What to do? We could not take a back seat. Finally, we connected with all our friends, well-wishers, and somehow pulled the money. And we just crept through. Our IPO was successful. 1.3 times we got the money. It was a very small IPO, 3.5 crores. At a valuation of 12 rupees 50 paise. So somehow we scraped through. We got the money, and then we started our plant in Bangalore in 95 March. The journey started in Bangalore from 2 machines. And I must tell you that what are the ethics and ethos of Manjushri. Right from our first year in 1983, we always thought that whatever we do, we should be following 4 principles. One is quality, second is commitment, then comes the ethics, ethical business, and fourth is customer centric. We always kept these 4 principles in mind, and these are the things I think which have helped us in scaling to the height which we are today. So 95 we started our business with 2 machines. Every second year we kept on adding another 2-3 machines. And In the year 2003, we put up our second plant and kept on expanding in the business. Then 2008, we came with further follow-on public issue. And why the need for a follow-on public issue was that we were wanting to go into the business of making the preforms. Now, preforms are the tubes, just like test tube, from which you blow and make the bottles. And when you supply to the beverage industries, the volumes are very big every day. They require 5 lakh to 10 lakh bottles. And transporting bottles is a very, very voluminous business, requiring a lot of transportation cost. So the best thing is that we send them the tubes and they in-house blow the tubes into the bottles. So in 2008, we thought of expanding into this business and we started making the preforms, for which again we needed money. Almost 10 to 15 crores of rupees were required. And then putting up the second plant, the total expansion was of 25 crores. We went for the follow-on public issue. This time again, there was something which did not go right. Just before our issue, Reliance Power issue came. And they made such a big noise that time that Reliance Power, because the Reliance Industries shares were always doing good, Reliance Power also will be doing accordingly the best in the market. So there was queue everywhere in front of the broker to collect the application forms. That time it was the physical application form. And DMAT had just started. There was so much of, in the market, there was so much of hue and cry. Everybody spent money for the investment into Reliance Power. And by the time our share came into the market, people did not have money. And somehow Reliance Power issue also was not listed at a good price. So again, people thought that share market is not the good place and not the IPOs. We got a very, very poor response. Again, we got into contact with our friends. Somehow we got 1.8 times that time, better than 95. And that was again because of our connections with various people that we got the IPO sale through. That time, many of the other IPOs failed. With that follow-up public issue, we listed our shares into National Stock Exchange and Bombay Stock Exchange. Before that, we were not listed in these two. The shares were listed. The price was in between 30 rupees to 50 rupees. It was sometime 30, 40, 50. It was like that, gradually increasing. We did our expansion, and in the year 2012, we almost became the largest in the country in making the preforms. And company balance sheet was quite healthy, profits were good. Few of the private equity funds started showing interest to invest in our company. The 2014 Kedara Capital approached us. They told that we like your company and we shall like to invest into the company. We did our due diligence. We thought, why not, with so much of our 20 years of business, great equity is there, why not we divest some of our shares? So 40% of the shares were divested in 2014. But one of the preconditions was that we should not be in the public domain because there are so much of regulations of SEBI. So they put a condition, why not you get delisted? And that is how the thought of delisting came. And we started a delisting process. Now delisting in India is not easy because you have to get 90% of the shares under your fold. And investors are sometimes thinking why the companies delisting, what are the reasons. So a lot of ifs and buts are there. Out of 10 companies, only 2 or 3 succeed. The rest are not able to delist their shares. We started our preparation for delisting, and somehow again we came through because of our untiring efforts that somehow we connected with all the investors. We told that we'll be giving you much better price than what you have invested. And most of the people agreed. So we delisted the shares at the rate of 445. Our follow-on public issue was at the rate of 45 in 2008. And within 6 years, we gave them almost 10 times the return. And people who had invested in 1995, they got almost 50 times the return. So investors are happy, all the shareholders were happy. We were able to delist our shares successfully. And then Kedara Capital invested 40% and became a partner with us. This is the story of listing and delisting.
Right, sir. I think we all regret not being old enough to have had invested in Manjushri Technopack at that point of time. We would have made some good money, sir. Apart from that, sir, this whole answer gave us a whole overview of how the company has progressed through the years from a financial perspective and help us understand the intricacies of the financial markets. So my next question is a very interesting one. So an interesting fact to note is that in the soft drink market, the company serves both the players of the duopoly, PepsiCo and Coca-Cola. In this regard, how has the company, Manjushri Technopack, fared during the cola wars, and what was your stance in such a delicate situation to ensure harmony and continuity of business with both your clients?
That's a good question. So what happens when you are doing business with one of them, the other person will not be giving you the business. That is the normal understanding, and that is how they want to do the business, because what happens, lot of business secrets are there. So if I am doing business with Coke, and then if I approach Pepsi, then Coke will be thinking that my secrets will be out to Pepsi. So that is how normally they don't entertain a common supplier for any of the products. So in 2008, we started making the preforms, and somehow we had the kind of preform range which none of the other people had. So first we started with Coke. We almost got their 30 to 40% share of all India. And because of our quality as well as our product range, Pepsi was also forced to buy from us. And we made it very clear that we have our business ethics. Whatever we do business with each of you, it will be top secret, and we cannot divulge anyone's information. They did their due diligence, and after that, they were also convinced that we are the right partners. And that is how we used to manage. So there is an interesting story. Even then, what happens? Coke is red and Pepsi is blue. So when any Coke person comes in our factory, all the blues will be out of the plant. Means all the blue bottles will not be displayed anywhere. No Pepsi bottle will be displayed. And same thing used to be with when the Pepsi person comes, all the red bottles were going out. Because they were so jealous of each other, they did not want to see the product also in the vendor's place. That is how we used to maintain. We used to maintain a very, very professional distance with both of them. And there was a cordial relationship. And they were also knowing that their secrets are safe with us. That is how we manage the business with both of the giants.
Right, sir. I think that has given us a good lesson of diplomacy and tact in business, and just proof that ethics are probably the most superior thing one can vouch for in business. Tanmay?
Thank you, Aryan. continuing with the question, sir. So, which industry do you believe will be contributing the maximum as a consumer to the demand of rigid plastics? As the rigid plastic manufacturing market in India is expected to grow at a whopping $14.4 billion by 2024.
Yeah. So what happens both, this is not only rigid, whether you talk of rigid or flexible packaging, the market is going to ever expand, and say Indian GDP grows at 7%, then the plastic industry or the packaging industry will be growing by 50% more. So there is always a growth of 11 to 12% in the industry overall, year after year. And as the consumer market, FMCG market, everything keeps on growing, this market will also grow. There is no going back. So what you are telling, the figure in 2024 of staggering amount of overall business in India and globally is going to be there. Indian market is still very small when you compare to all the developed markets. So there is a lot of room to grow. Yeah.
Right. Now, so the follow-up question on this. So what improvements do you hope to see in this particular market that would facilitate this achievement of the target, which we just spoke, which was 14.4 billion, and you mentioned it would be even more. So what would be the improvements which we are going to see, which is going to facilitate this whole process?
So one is that you have to get the world-class machineries, which gives you much faster productivity. And number two is investment into R&D. Indian industries normally don't spend much on R&D, but I think last 5-6 years, people have understood that if we have to grow, then we have to think of innovation, we have to think of new products. So a lot of R&D is coming into India now. So that is another thing which will be the key for the expansion. And a better workforce. You require workforce which is dedicated, which is knowledgeable, both skilled and non-skilled. And fourth is the automation. When the market grows and you are producing X number of amount to 10X numbers, you have to come into the automation also. So these are the various things which must grow in India at much faster pace if you have to grow at 10 to 15% year after year. I think I answered your question.
Yes, sir, completely 100%. So you are right that change is the only constant, and one company has to always invest in new technology, technology and R&D for its development. Now, sir, continuing on this particular aspect which you told about automation, sir, the company engages in the production of multiple variations of the PET manufacturing products to serve its massive customer base. Now, in this particular regards, what nature of bespoke technology is Manjushri Technopak using right now to fulfill such a huge demand?
So we always get the machines which are much faster than what our competitors are using. In 2008, the maximum number of cavities, cavity is, let's say, at one time, how many tubes can you produce? People were having 48 cavities, and we got the latest machines with 96 cavity, double the capacity, and much faster cycle time. So if we have to be ahead of the curve and we have to beat our clients, then we have to get machines which can give you much better productivity and much better quality. So in Manjushri, we have always believed in that. Number two, go for the best machinery, not for the Chinese ones. So the Chinese ones come at much cheaper price, but you don't get the quality. And again, the problem is there that everybody knows that after 5 years, the machine will become almost junk. So we always went for the better technology. We got machines from Japan and Germany. So that was the key to the success. Better machines, better output, less maintenance cost, and better quality.
Right, sir. So we can certainly see that Manjushri Technopak was always ahead of its pack, ahead of its competitors, and its core competency, which you mentioned, that the other organizations filled 48 cavities, Manjushri Technopak had the ability to fulfill 96, which shows that Manjushri was always a step ahead of its competitors. Aryan?
Yeah, that's right.
Thank you, Tanmay. So my next question is that how has the shift in customer behavior owing to the pandemic affected the demand for products involving rigid packaging? For which products has demand increased and for which products has demand slumped?
So the obvious sector which has had high demand was pharma sector. In the month of April, it was a lull period because that was just the beginning of the pandemic. From May onwards, the requirement of all the hand sanitizers, then hand wash, all these items became 10 times to 15 times. And all our machines capacities were booked. Can you imagine in the month of August 2020, we had our highest production in Bangalore, all-time high. So packaging industry had a much better time, especially those who were in the consumer industries. And even the consumer items like Hindustan Unilever, Procter and Gamble, everybody was taking their quantities. The lull period was only April and May. But later on, because you need to buy your daily needs item, so there was never a slump in the FMCG and pharma. These two industries did always well, and during pandemic they did much better than previous years. And your second question is which industry did not do well? So that was the promotion industries. So we sell many of the items for promotions in the market. That market was almost nil. And second, what other industry did not do well? I think other than promotion and little bit of some packaging items for white goods we were giving, that also was little bit dull that time. Other than that, all our different sectors were doing well. Even the liquor industry was down in the month of August, September, October. From November onwards, that industry also picked up quite a lot. But pharma was the key. In fact, our 100% of the capacity was booked.
So I think it's safe to say that packaging is a truly evergreen industry and not even a pandemic can stop business in packaging industry. So coming to my next question, what is your vision regarding the growth of post-consumer recyclables or the PCR market in India, considering the recent shift of customer preferences towards more sustainable packaging? Also, how successful has the Born Again campaign been, which was initiated by the company, in promoting an ecosystem of circular consumption?
So what is happening now, the complete market dynamics is shifting now world over. Whatever packaging we use must be recyclable. And anything which is not recyclable must be phased out. And that is what I think all the countries are looking into. The first thing is that disposable products, one-time use products, so one time you use and throw, those items should be phased out. And Government of India has taken a stand that by 2022, all single-use items should be banned. Now, what to do in that case? And second thing is that non-recyclable. Now, what is non-recyclable? In the daily use, lot of plastic pouches are coming. Like you have the potato chips packet. Now, this is made of multi-layer, where one layer is polyester, second layer is polythene. Now, this cannot be recycled. If you have to recycle, then both the layers should be of the same family. It cannot be polyester and polythene. It has to be polythene and polythene. So industry is moving towards that overall we should be going for recyclable products only. Non-recyclable has to be phased out. Lot of R&D is going. And second big shift which is there, that if I am consuming 1000 kg of plastics into manufacturing of my product, I should be forced to collect 1000 kg from the market post-consumer. So that is what is the PCR. Now it is not possible for each and everyone to go to the market and collect the consumer waste. So what people are going to do is appoint some agencies. Those agencies have to do a better collection, and they will be giving certificate to the producer. So some kind of, in fact, no clear guidelines have come. Industry and government both are working on the guidelines, but overall aim is that there has to be almost 90% collection of the products which are discarded by the consumers. And I think the clear guidelines will come by the end of the year. And the overall, then every person has to abide by that. And 90% recyclability, it happens. Then I think the problem of sustainability, a better sustainable business, better sustainable country, all those aims will be able to be achieved, but lot of hard labor has to be done. It is not easy to organize everything so that 90% is recycled. People have to change their habits. I don't know how it's going to be done and how much time will it be done, but future is going to be only recyclable plastics. And there is no alternative to plastics. We have to use, definitely, if you are able to get your own bottle while going into some meetings, or say you are going for some vacation, always carry your bottles. That way you are reducing the use of the bottles, but you cannot stop. Alternatives are either glass, paper, or metal. Now, paper cannot be used too often because that again is environment hazard. It is going to create much more problems. Glass also is not an alternative because producing glass requires 10 times the energy. Plastic melts at 200 degrees, and glass for manufacturing requires 2000 degrees of temperature. So once people shift to glass, then the energy requirement will go very high, and that will be another economic disaster. So glass is also not an answer, and then glass is breakable much heavier. And one that is the path forward. Have I answered your question?
Yes, sir, most certainly. Thank you for that answer, sir. Now coming to a more light-hearted question. Museums of natural history and artifacts are quite heard of, but a heritage packaging museum is quite a unique concept. So what was the intention behind building a museum solely dedicated to packaging? And how did you go about engaging the attention of the public?
So that was the passion of my brother Vimal Kedia. So somehow he was always fascinated of things which were kept in the museum. So any of the place he visits in the, say, Europe, he is going to anywhere else, he used to visit the museums. And that is how the thought came that why not, and initially the thought was not there. We used to collect the packaging items from different places, the old ones, the new ones, everything. And we were just keeping in a place in one of the godowns. Then sometime the idea came that why not we keep it in a proper place so that people can see. And that is how the idea came. And then we called one agency and told them that we want to make a museum, and then they started the work. That was in the year 2003 or 4. And we had around 200, 300 products. And after that, we told all our friends, well-wishers, customers that if you have any old packaging, just give it to us. We went to Kawadiwalas, we went to the chore market, everywhere, and got all the old items which we can get hold of it. And we wanted to showcase that how the world has moved in last 100 years. So I'll welcome all of you to come down sometime and see how things are displayed there, how the world has changed in packaging. So it was just a passion that brought the thought that why not create a museum where people can come and see that how the world has moved from paper, glass to plastics. And this is the unique museum in India. There are 1 or 2 museums in Europe, but it is very rare. You will see things which when you were as a child, 5 years, 10 years, many of the products you were using that time, you will be seeing that in the museum. It is really fascinating.
Right. So I'm sure a visit is due from all of us, and it just shows that if you have innovation and if you have the right efforts to do it, anything is possible, and sky is your limit. So my next question is also related to this topic only. Is the Reuseum, which was another initiative launched by the company and measured to support the sustainability goals by generating public awareness towards the concept of recycling? And when can we expect that to be operational, since its progress was halted owing to the COVID pandemic?
Yeah, it was due to the pandemic. In fact, a lot of work was halted, and the agency which were working for it, they also had certain issues. So because of that, we had to halt the project. And I think it will be another 1 year, 2022, because a lot of thought process has to go. We have to find a new agency who will be doing the job. And we want to showcase that how the plastics can be recycled and how you can use it for making some of the decorative products, how you can make things in our daily use, how can you make brick out of plastics. All those kind of thought processes will go into this, but it requires a lot of efforts. Maybe sometime in end of 2022, we'll be putting up the museum. And not museum, reusing.
Right, sir. We are most certainly going to be one of your first customers, sir, because we feel really intrigued by this concept and we can't wait to experience it, sir. Over to Tanmay.
Thank you, Arvind. So now coming to more industry-specific question. So by the virtue of operating in such a competitive and fragmented industry, what has been the company's philosophy which has made it the successful market leader which it is today?
As I told you, the 4 pillars of our company is the commitment, quality, and innovation is one thing I did not stress earlier. So we always look forward for the new products which are coming in the market and bring it to the table of our client that yes, this is the new product available. And always going for their requirement, the thought process starts in advance. I know that if Hindustan Unilever is going to grow by 10% next year, he will be requiring many more products. Then I need to increase my capacity to meet that demand. So always that thought process was there, and because of our innovations and new products in the market, the customer also was finding value in us. Second thing is giving the required quantity at the right time. So the kind of capacity what we created by putting up 7 plants all over India, no other competitor had in India. So if you require say 25 lakh bottles in a month, then they have to come to Manjushri, because others will not be able to give more than 10 lakhs, 15 lakhs. So scalability, innovations, and thinking ahead, these are the reasons because of which I think we have been able to beat our competitors, I must say.
Right, sir. So we can clearly see that you have actually turned the market opportunities in your strength, and how you've capitalized upon them certainly tells us why Manjushri Technopack is the leader. Also, sir, now let's deviate from the particular industry and how you have diversified. Let's diversify in the questions. So, what is your vision with the recent launch of Reset Wellness for the health and wellness industry in India? Also, what is the market gap or the potential need which you are trying to capitalize upon through the initiation of this particular venture?
So, in 2018, we divested 80% of our shares to a company called Advent International, and we had a clause that we cannot go into a packaging business, okay, for 5 years. So we have to think something new. So we started thinking of different activities, and I had my passion that we should be doing something in health and wellness. So this is one of the activities we thought that we should be promoting, and we should do something which is not available in Bangalore. It is available in Bangalore, but everything under one roof. So I got into contact with Luke Coutinho. Luke Coutinho, I don't know whether you people have heard or not. He is one of the celebrity nutritionists internationally, and he is so authentic in his thoughts that once you listen to him, you are hooked to him. Very simple man, and his ideas are what our grandparents used to have. Eat local foods and support that, and those are the things which are going to build your immunity and your health. So after understanding his concept, and because I had interest in health and fitness, I thought, let me put his ideas into Bangalore and start one venture. That is how the research started in Bangalore. But then the pandemic has come. We started in August 2020, and till January people were in two minds. February onwards, the pace has picked up once again, but the second wave has come. I think it will take some more time. But the major aim of Reset is to change your lifestyle. One has to be active. One has to change his lifestyle for a healthy living. So what happens when a person crosses 40 years, you start getting all the lifestyle disease. Someone becomes diabetic, someone gets the blood pressure is high, and all those problems starts. So for that, if you want to be a fit person, you have to be starting early in your life. In fact, my suggestion to all you people who are studying is that be active always and start your fitness journey immediately, so that you always give 1 hour of your life, 24 hours, 1 hour you have to take out for your activities. And many times people want to avoid. अरे मेरे पास टाइम नहीं है, मेरे को अभी ऑफिस जाना है, रात को आऊंगा उसके बाद क्या करूंगा. तो whatever is there, you have to manage your 24 hours in such a way that 1 hour you have to take out and do something. You do go for walk, you do yoga, you do gym, whatever you do, but you must take out 1 hour of time so that your agility is there, your fitness level is better than others, and you are able to be fit throughout your life. Even once you are crossing the age of 60, you are fit enough to live a healthy living. That is why we started this reset, so that we can spread this message of what Luke is telling everyone. Along with health and fitness, we are looking into some other industries also, which in the next year will be, once the pandemic is almost gone, then another industry we are looking into, and in 2022 middle will be coming with something more, some more new products. And health and wellness also, we are planning for many more things in the near future. We are planning to come out with an app which can tell you everything about health and fitness, about yoga, about Ayurveda, naturopathy, everything. So that's a brief about.
Right. So I mean, you have. Right, sir. You're 100% right, sir. One should always start early in life because it's all about the consistency. One has to be really consistent in whatever we do. And as you mentioned, we all are a big fan of Mr. Luke Coutinho. Though we have never met him, but through YouTube and other social media platforms, we certainly listen to him. We follow his regime, and you're 100% right when you said that we have to go back to what our grandparents have said, their way of living and their way of lifestyle, be it what we eat or how we exercise, was the top notch, which we still have to follow if we want to remain fit. Over to you, Aryan.
Thank you so much, Tanmay. Lastly, sir, the Kedia brothers are well renowned for their strong personal values and their unwavering professional ethic. In this regard, if there was a piece of advice that you could impart to a first generation budding entrepreneur about the importance of ethics and values in business, what would that be?
So all of you are going to become successful entrepreneurs or get into the job and become experts in the fields, whatever you are going to do. So what are the mantras? Actually, what you are asking is what mantra should I be telling you? So first mantra, I already told that be active and be fit always. Okay. You have to take out 1 hour time. Second is always be committed to your goals, be committed to your work and to the family. One should not think of a 9 to 5 job. Okay, that doesn't mean that you spend 12 hours, 14 hours, but be committed. You give value of whatever you do to your employer, both. So employer should feel that, yes, you are giving 100% of your efforts. The third thing I tell you that once you start your professional journey, always think of saving 5% of your savings, always, right from day one. And the power of cumulative compounding effect is very, very big. When you look into the Western world, they have never thought of savings. They are into the credit card era and they always spend more than what they earn. But in India, we have always thought of that we should be saving that money. And believe me, it always helps in the bad times. So if you are earning 25,000 rupees, you can start with a savings of 1,000 rupees and put it somewhere. Lot of avenues are there. That is the third advice. The fourth one is respect people who have less power than you. So never look down on anyone. Okay, a person who is a cobbler, he is doing his job. A person who is sweeping the floor, he is doing his job. So every person has got his integrity. So respect every person. And the last is, don't rush. Always plan properly and then execute it in a organized manner. I think that is what the management also teaches all of you, that do your activity in a planned manner. Don't be impatient and don't rush into the things. I think these are the mantras which will help you. And lastly, always be ethical in whatever you do. Always follow the law of the land and practice the ethical practices. That is going to bring the success.
Right, sir. I think these are the 5 mantras we'll treasure all along our professional lives, and we'll surely plan to implement it in our professional lives so that we can grow as much as we can. Well, sir, that brings us to the end of this interview. Thank you so much for interacting with us, and I'm sure we are all taking home some essential learnings today. I would also like to extend my gratitude.
Thank you. Thank you. All the best to everyone.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.